Hello, I'm Desiree Frazier, host of the award-winning news program, Mississippi Edition. We bring you conversations about the latest news from across the Magnolia State. Whether it's politics, healthcare, or education, you'll hear in-depth discussions on issues that matter to you. So join us each weekday morning at 8:30 on MPB Think Radio, or download the podcast, listen through the app, and online.
The nation's oldest traveling celebration of the arts, the National Folk Festival, is coming to downtown Jackson November 7th through the 9th. Discover the sights, sounds, and flavors of our nation. The full lineup is now available, featuring blues, gospel, Puerto Rican, Irish, Southern Soul, Bluegrass, Korean, Zydeco, Flamenco, HBCU marching bands, Choctaw, Go-Go, and more. It's unique and unforgettable fun for the entire family, and it's free. More at nationalfolkfestival.com.
What's happening, Mississippi? You have found the Sit Down with Russ Latino on this Wednesday, October 1st. We're going to chat today with a couple of different important folks. One, Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, Andy Gipson. And in the second half of the program, we'll talk with Mississippi Department of Public Health Officer Daniel Edney. You can join today's conversation, as always, by sending an email to the sitdown@mpbonline.org. Or you can listen to us, anytime, watching the live stream on YouTube, watching the podcast, or listening to the podcast after the fact on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We are delighted to be joined today in studio by Commissioner Andy Gipson. We've had Commissioner Gipson on before, but particularly delighted because when you think about fall, you think about football, you think about the air maybe getting a little cooler, at least in the mornings, still a little hot come midday, leaves starting to change colors in fall if you got some hardwoods around you. And if you're in Mississippi, you think about the Mississippi State Fair. Commissioner Gipson, we're entering the 166th year of the State Fair. What can fairgoers expect this year?
Well, it's going to be a great year. Always is. Thank you for having me on, Russ, and thanks to MPB for hosting this as well. We are tomorrow, we are launching the 166th Mississippi State Fair. We're going to cut the ribbon at 11 o'clock. All your favorites, whether it's food or whether it's the trade show in the Trade Mart, or I know a lot of people's favorites is the biscuit booth. So it's all going to be there like it always has been. But this year is really special and different because we've been invited to participate in the Great American State Fair competition put on by America 250. President Trump, of course, when he was reelected, had an idea for a great big American fair. And that's going to happen on the National Mall next year, July 4th, 2026. I look forward to representing Mississippi at that Great American Fair. But what the challenge came to us in June, I was sitting at my desk working on some things, and I got an email from the White House saying, we want to invite you to participate in the Great American State Fair competition. Who can have the most patriotic state fair in all of America? And I didn't even have to pray about it, Russ. I wrote him right back, said Mississippi is in, and that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was picked up the phone and called Lee Greenwood's agent. I said, we need Lee Greenwood in Mississippi the week of October 2nd through 13th. And we got him. He's coming here Columbus Day to wrap up our great American Mississippi State Fair. We're going to have the most patriotic fair. I have no doubt about it. And we're going to win this thing. We've had time to prepare. Some states didn't have the time that we've had to prepare. But here, as you said, we're deep in the fall, October. And we're looking forward to having the Mississippi State Fair wrapped in red, white, and blue October 2nd through 13th.
Yeah, when you think about sort of iconic Norman Rockwell-esque things, Mom's apple pie, we're entering into baseball playoffs. Yep. Major League Baseball certainly fits into that category. State fairs have a unique place in the hearts of a lot of older people and a lot of younger people as well. Yep. As a throwback in time almost to a simpler time, right, where folks got together, were able to have a little fun, a little levity, ride rides, compete with livestock, get biscuits, all that fun stuff. The Mississippi State Fair has always been a special one.
It has. We're probably one of the last in time in the country because we're so far south. A lot of fairs up in the Midwest are happening in August, some in September. So we have the benefit of this cooler weather, and we also have A great time of the year. October is just one of my favorite times of the year. Like you said, all the great things that happen in the fall, but another festive activity. Our 4-H FFA kids will be here in the livestock barns. By the way, they're having the most patriotic livestock stall competition. We're doing that all over the state fair this year.
So what does a patriotic livestock stall look like?
Well, it's got to be red, white, and blue. I don't know, but I want to invite everybody out there to come join me October 2nd through 13th. Walk through those livestock barns. We normally have a pretty cow contest with the dairy cows, but this year we're having a patriotic cow contest. Every food vendor is participating in a most patriotic food vendor competition, and the trade hall is geared up patriotic. So we've even got we invited every marching band in the state of Mississippi to come to this, and a lot of them will be here for the parade. We're having a big parade October 13th. And then there'll be live performances on the Midway at what we're calling Liberty Landing on the south side of the Coliseum. Who can be the most patriotic marching band in all the state of Mississippi? We're going to find that out this year.
So what time do you open up tomorrow for folks who are champing at the bit to get in?
All right, so Monday through Friday, including tomorrow, opening day, 11 o'clock, we'll open the doors. And by the way, admission is free. People used to know this, but I think they've forgotten it. Admission is absolutely free, 11 to 1. So you can come during lunch, bring your family. There's no cost to get in Monday through Friday. The only exception to that is Columbus Day, which is Monday, the 13th, which is a holiday. Come on in, enjoy the food, support these food vendors. These are mostly Mississippi folks. They are hardworking moms and dads and grandpas, some who've been here at the fair for a long time, serving up the best fair food that you like to enjoy. And so come support them and see who's the most patriotic. And I tell people this, when you come to the fair this year, be sure to wear your red, white, and blue. We want to get a picture of a sea of the red, white, and blue folks all across Mississippi who come here, who love America like we all do and like we should. And, special thing that's happening this year on the 8th, Wednesday the 8th, that's our senior day, free admission for seniors on Senior American Day. We're going to have some church presentations. They're doing some theatrical performances, and First Baptist Jackson's doing their Let Freedom Ring, and we're going to have a special time of prayer for America as one nation under God. And that's something that America 250, that we celebrate. We're heading into 250 years. We all know it is because of the good Lord that we have a country and our freedom that we enjoy. So we need to bring America together, and let's pray for unity and for one nation under God.
So give me a sense. I've always just kind of been curious. How many people flow in and out of the fairgrounds during the fair?
Well, it's hard to keep count, but we know over 500,000 come through last year. We had really some peak numbers right after COVID. People were just pent up, and they were like, we had probably had over 1 million people. I think it was 1.1 million. And a lot of it's driven by the weather. If you have good weather, you're going to have great fair attendance. It was pretty hot last year. But it looks like, as Woody Asaph used to say, we've called up Doppler radar, and it's looking like good weather for the fair. So come on out and enjoy it. The cost to get in outside of the lunch hour is not big at all, considering all the free rides and entertainment acts that you get when you come. You're going to pay $10. There's no parking fee. You get a free taste of the Dixie National Rodeo. You get a free children's center with the different games and all that. And it's going to be a patriotic center this year, and selfie stations and all that good stuff. So come on out and don't miss the biscuit booth. We gave 100,000 biscuits away last year.
Talk about that tradition, because I know that's something that you're particularly proud of. I have seen you post about the biscuit booth so much on social media. What's the origin of that tradition? What does it mean to you?
Commissioner Jim Buck Ross had this idea, what could set Mississippi's fair apart from the rest of the nation? And they said, let's bake biscuits. We know how to do that in Mississippi. And they got some sponsors. And our sponsors have changed over the years, but our sponsors today are Kroger and Prairie Farms Buttermilk and Blackburn Syrup. And that's a great combination. So we have this booth set up. The normal hours, Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock. We open early, 10 o'clock on weekends, or 11, I think, on Sunday. And you don't want to miss it. It's free. You can come back and get another one, and it's thanks to our good sponsors that pay the freight to cook all these biscuits. And then, like I say, we'll average 100,000 biscuits every single year. That tells you how much people like biscuits in Mississippi. And when we go to Washington, D.C. in July of 2026, I'm going to take some of the biscuit booth with us. We're going to show Washington, D.C. what the biscuit booth is all about.
And you can go get your free biscuit or your funnel cake or your corn dog, and then you can walk it off. From ride to ride, vendor to vendor.
That's right.
Throwing rings at bottles and getting twirled around until you want to yammy a little bit.
We got 60 different carnival rides this year. We got 100 different food vendors. Something for everybody. If it gets warm, go inside the new Trade Mart. Really great exposition about agriculture and just a lot of great things about Mississippi in that Trade Mart you can walk around and see, and the petting zoo and all that. It's a great experience, but it all begins with agriculture. I like to remind folks, we would not have a state fair, and nobody would if it weren't for agriculture. These young people raising livestock and showing off the cream of the crop, and our young people in 4-H and FA, as far as I'm concerned, are the cream of the crop.
How many kiddos participate in that competition?
We'll have 2,000, and plus all their families, moms, dads, grandparents coming from all over Mississippi. They love to come here. And then we'll have even more come during the Dixie National, which is in February. But it begins here at the fair, and it's a highlight of the hardworking agriculture, the hardworking farmers across the state, and the young people who are committed to it. And these young people are going to grow up, and they may well work on a farm, but most of them are going to be our future leaders. You see that at the Dixie National Sale of Champions when they come back. They're getting scholarships to go to college. They're going to be the next doctors. They're going to be the next bankers. They're going to be the next business leaders of Mississippi. And they learn their work ethic on a farm in Mississippi. I love that about the State Fair.
I like the fact that you didn't throw out the next lawyers. Both of us, by trade, are those.
Do we need any more
people like Andy and Russ?
I don't know with the AI thing. They're coming up with a lot of information on the computer. Something that's learning to think as good as a lawyer, it seems like. But, I tell folks, I hope you never need a lawyer, but if you do, I hope you get a good one.
So we got to take a break here in a second. How much red, white, and blue bunting have you ordered for this thing?
Oh, it's a lot of red, white, and blue. We even have 3 giant red, white, and blue eagles inflated. I told folks this morning, it looked like the eagle has landed. The eagle of American freedom has landed at the state fairgrounds. Y'all come see it.
We are talking about the 166th Mississippi State Fair in Jackson, Mississippi at the fairgrounds, a big event that happens every fall. Doors will open tomorrow at 11 a.m., October 2nd, run through October 13th. Is that right?
That's right.
And we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up on the State Fair, maybe talk a little bit of politics with Commissioner Andy Gipson. Seems like he's been doing a little politicking these days, so worth digging into. You're listening to The Sit Down with Russ Latino. We will be back in just a moment.
This October, the Mississippi Antique Showcase comes to Oxford, where storied relics, family heirlooms, and unique treasures await. But this season, the journey goes beyond the appraisals. Join us for candid conversations with our appraisers, take a peek backstage, and experience the unique charm of Oxford. New episodes air Thursdays at 7 p.m. on MPB Television. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Together through the years, together in the future. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Everlasting, the Legacy Podcast, is a brand new companion podcast to the MPB documentary Everlasting, the life and legacy of Medgar Evers. Join me, Rita Brent, as we dive deeper into the story with exclusive interviews and conversations about the enduring legacy of Medgar Evers. Everlasting, the Legacy Podcast, available on the MPB app or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes every other week. MPB, your stories, our mission.
You're listening to The Sit Down right here on MPB Think Radio. I'm your host, Russ Latino. Today we're talking with our guest, Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, Andy Gipson. A little later we'll have Mississippi Department of Public Health Officer Daniel Edney on. But we're talking about the state fair. It is a fun time of year. You know, look, there's a lot of negativity floating around in the world right now, a lot of debate, a lot of disagreement. I think everybody can agree that it's pretty fun to go to a state fair, eat a funnel cake, ride some rides, look at some art, look at some Mississippi crafts, go see some livestock, take stock of your neighbors, and just have a little communal fun. 166 is a long time to have been doing this, but it seems like it's growing in terms of popularity. It seems like it's growing in terms of the number of people who want to be involved. Heck, I know you mentioned the thing about not charging ticket prices during 11 to 1.
Yeah.
You know, back when I worked downtown, that was a great deal to be like something different to go do during lunch.
Yeah. People walk down off that hill and just hordes of working folks coming into the state fair. And that still happens to some extent. There's not as many folks working downtown in Jackson as there once were. But we've not changed that policy. It's open for lunch. If you drive in, you get in between 11 and 1. And we do that to support our food vendors. We've seen some really great lunch crowds, and that helps them be successful. And, you know, remember, you're supporting Mississippi businesses when you do that.
Well, my kids love going. They love getting on rides that Dad will no longer ride on. And I think their general practice is they ride into the point that they feel nauseated.
Yeah, I've seen that too. We have 4, and we've seen it in all 4 at some point. There comes a point, though, when they say, you know, I've had enough of that. But we got a lot of 60 different carnival rides this year, and all the food vendors, there's always something new or different. Malone's Taffy has already been selling taffy for the last week. It's sitting out here. People just know to come. They know that Malone's is up and running. They're getting that fair taffy. You can't beat it. You just can't beat it.
So I had a question. You're having a fiddling contest.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It is. We have a fiddling contest. We have it.
Have y'all done that every year?
We've been doing it every year. You know, it started back around the time of COVID, I guess it was. And so there are a lot of people who didn't come that year or who weren't able to come, didn't want to come. But it's grown, and we have Temperance Babcock, who is one of the great fiddle teachers. In fact, she taught 2 of my children to play the violin and fiddle, as you want to call it. And it's a great time. There's nothing more. You talk about American patriotism, think about a fiddle competition. You come out and enjoy it. You'll have a good time. That's in the trademark, where it's air conditioned, by the way.
Yeah, and for the record, I said fiddling contest, which is how they teach it when you go to Tulane or the University of Mississippi School of Law. You say fiddling, right?
Fiddling, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So throwback to the Charlie Daniels time. It's fun stuff, exciting stuff. So tell me, with the competition, the fair competition, Great American State Fair, how many other states are entered into that deal?
Well, technically all 50 are, but I'm not sure if California and New York want to be part of it. I don't even know if they'll be there at the Great American Fair next July, but we've heard from, you know, probably there are probably a dozen serious contenders who have really made this a big deal. Mississippi is one of those, and I think we're the only one who actually booked and locked in Lee Greenwood. He's going to wrap our fair up October 13th with a big concert and the biggest fireworks show we've ever seen. That same day, that's Columbus Day, we'll have a Great American Parade, and so we're going to march around, ride around the fairgrounds, and you'll see a whole lot of red, white, and blue. And again, come on out, bring your family, your kids. This is something that won't happen every year, not even every generation, this Great American State Fair. We want to celebrate it, and the White House said the celebration starts now. Let's let the state fairs be the patriotic epicenter of America.
I think it's something if you've got an exclusive with Lee Greenwood, because when you first mentioned his name, I thought if I'm Lee Greenwood's agent, this is a great time to be Lee Greenwood. I'd be like, hey, he can come to every single one of your fairs. So cool that you got an exclusive there.
We got him, and I'm going to introduce him that evening and look forward. If I don't do anything else, I'm going to sing God Bless the USA with Lee Greenwood on stage that evening right before the fireworks go off.
Well, it's a good experience, a good break for families. I know a lot of families have fall break coming up next week, so it'll be good. Yeah. Good opportunity.
Let me throw one or two other things out. We're having Military Mondays. If you're a veteran or active service member, just bring your ID on either Monday, and you're going to get in free. And no matter what time of day you come, and First Responder Friday. So first responder, law enforcement, medical personnel, thank you for all y'all do. We want you to come enjoy your Mississippi State Fair.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that it's a part of the America 250 celebration. Obviously, next year is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and the founding of our country. And whether you're red or blue, black, white, whatever your background is, I think most people can look at this country and recognize that the set of ideals that it was founded upon are pretty important, pretty special, and that it's led to a lot of prosperity and a lot of well-being for the people who live in this country, and it's worth celebrating the unique American experiment. So I'm glad in our state that we're doing that as well. As we think about Mississippi's future, you have, I think, become the first person who came out and said, hey, I'm running for governor in 2027. Right. That since the last time you were on the program, that had not been announced. So I did want to spend a few minutes with you today and maybe just talk a little bit about what was that decision process for you to come out. Because a lot of people look at it and say, well, it's kind of early in the political season to go ahead and make that announcement.
Yeah, I've been praying about it. My wife, Leslie, and I have both been praying about it for a couple of years. And the fact is, there's not a place I could go in Mississippi without lots of people coming up to me at the Walmart or Kroger, at the fish house. You need to run for governor. We want you to run for governor. It became tens of thousands of people, and I mean all over the state. And finally, I told Leslie, I said, I got to get away from this. I hear all these voices. I need to know, is this what the Lord wants me to do or not? And if it's not, I don't want to do it. Well, I went off and prayed, and about 2 days of prayer, seriously praying about it, and I got a real good confirmation about that in the sense that to do it and do it now. And so when I got done with that, talking to Leslie about it, I said, well, why are we waiting? Well, I'll just announce it. That's not conventional, but, I felt led to do it, so I did. And I don't regret it at all because I've had such a good response of people all over Mississippi. People are very gracious and kind, and I've had lots of invitations to speak, and it's kept me busier than maybe I wanted to be this summer, but I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I don't regret it. I do have a clear sense that this is what the Lord would have me to do, and offering myself as a candidate for governor in 2027, which will be here before you know it. I mean, it's almost 26. We got a big race in the Senate coming up in 26. We'll wake up and it'll be January 27, and Mississippi will elect a new governor in August and November of 2027. So I want to be that governor. I humbly, respectfully ask for your vote and your support.
So let me ask you, you're the first one technically out of the gate. Certainly there have been a lot of other names mentioned. People have talked about businessman Tommy Duff as a potential sort of big elephant in the room if he's willing to spend a bunch of money. You got other statewide elected officials, whether you're talking about Delbert Hoseman or Lynn Fitch or Shad White, who have all at least expressed interest in running for governor. And it seems like there's more than a toe in the water, maybe a whole foot in the water for some of those folks. And then you got guys like your former colleague, former Speaker Philip Gunn, and other business people. Gerard Gibbert's name has been mentioned. I don't rattle all these off to get you to give me an assessment of them, but to say, at least right now, there are a lot of people talking about potentially running for governor. As you look at the names that are out there, how do you distinguish yourself from those folks? If people wanted to know why Andy Gipson and not some of these other names, what would you say?
Well, those are good names, and I like most of those people. I would be very clear to say I'm not running against anybody, running for this office. And the reason I'm running for this office is I believe that I've got not only believe it, I can prove. I've got the record. I've had the proven conservative, not only talking points, but actually getting things done for the people of Mississippi, whether it was in a policy-making role in the legislature, or whether it's been as an executive leader at the Department of Ag. We've done some amazing things, and, not just talk, but action. from bringing out the bill that actually overturned Roe versus Wade, House Bill 1510, fighting that battle. I fought that battle on the floor with my colleague, Representative Becky Curry, and we won, restoring our Second Amendment rights. And we have to always be vigilant on that. We defeated Jim Hood's theory that you had to have a state-issued permit to carry a gun in Mississippi. We restored that constitutional carry. And religious freedom, those things that are important to us that are very most fundamental, talk about America 250, constitutional principles. And also fiscal conservative. We've combined 3 different agencies, the Department of Ag, the Fair Commission, and the Market Board for the farmers market into one agency, and we're running it more efficiently than ever. So we've proven that can be done. It needs to be done across a swath of state government, and it's going to have to be done. We're going to have to do more with less because we want our taxes low. I'm thankful we're phasing out the income tax, but as that goes down, we got to make government more efficient. And I guess the bottom line is, if you want somebody who's walked the walk, not just talked the talk, I'm your guy.
So one of the big issues that's percolating right now is a question around school choice, what that means, whether it's good for Mississippi, bad for Mississippi, good for public schools, bad for public schools, how parents fit into it. When you think about the concept of school choice and expanding that in Mississippi the way some of our surrounding states have, what's your response? You think it's a positive thing?
Absolutely. It's a positive thing. It should have been done a decade ago. Mississippians deserve the same freedoms, the same choices that our neighboring states have. We're all Americans. But this is another issue. I mean, there's been several through the years that we've had to fight battles to get the basic freedoms that we as Mississippians know we should have. But for some bureaucrat somewhere, they didn't want us to have those freedoms. And so school choice is one that can be done. There's a lot of different ways to do it. People immediately think about vouchers, but that's not the only way. There's a way to do it without harming any of our great public schools. I'm a product of public schools, Rankin County School District. It can be done in a way that helps young people who are trapped in a failing district to get the education that they should be getting and not just stuck in a cycle of poverty and a lack of education. And I look at the states that have done this. I've read a lot of different ways to do it. There's a discussion happening right now at the legislature, and I'm looking forward to seeing something happen with this. But the bottom line is find the best way to do it for Mississippi and for Mississippians and get it done and quit talking about it.
It's going to be a lot of fun from a political observer standpoint to watch what happens over the next couple of years in terms of jockeying. Obviously, you got a lot of people. Delbert is term limited in the lieutenant governor's role. Tate is term limited in the governor's role. The end result of that is you've got a bunch of statewides that are going to be competing for some of those top of ticket roles, which means there's going to be a whole lot of additional races for ag commissioner and auditor and treasurer and, depending on what people do, a lot of openings potentially, Secretary of State. So it will be interesting to watch. What is, if you will, your North Star on what Mississippi should be trying to accomplish? You wake up in 2027 and you have been elected governor. What is it that Andy wants to put his focus and his energy on?
Well, 2 things: making our government, our state government, more efficient, doing more with less, and conserving our natural resources in a way that we are blessed as a state with so many things that are leading the current boom in our growth in the economy. And folks located here. One of those things is water. We have water. California doesn't have water anymore. The Midwest doesn't have water anymore. This is going to be, according to the folks who prognosticate the future, the Southeast is going to be the food supply hub of the United States of America. That means we're going to be the breadbasket. And taking our existing largest sector of agriculture, the largest part of our economy, and doubling that to include the processing, the distribution, the local food supply that we see, that's going to double our largest industry at the same time as we bring in these new industries and new data centers and other ideas that are out there that are going to make our economy continue to grow. Mississippi has turned the corner. We got a bright future ahead, and we can position ourselves to be the leader of this country's food supply as we look to the future. And I'm excited about that.
We've got to take a break. We'll be back with State Health Officer Daniel Edney. We've been talking with Commissioner Andy Gipson. Thanks for coming in. By all means, go to the fair starting tomorrow at 11 a.m. running October 2nd through October 13th. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. See you there.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Rush. As a blues man, I love Mississippi Public Broadcasting. If you support Mississippi music and their local programming, donate now, right now, and become a member today, not tomorrow. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hatred destroys the one who hates. The others that you hated, go on about their business, care of us.
So the legacy of Medgar Evers is an understanding of our own humanity and of our own responsibility of seeing that in other people.
He is written out of history. He's just not included as Malcolm and Martin. To me, it's the 3 M's, and Medgar is right up there at the lead.
Everlasting, Life and Legacy of Medgar Evers. Watch now on MPB Passport. Visit mpbonline.org for more.
Every parent wants their child to grow, to explore, and to dream big. At MPB, we're proud to support families and teachers across Mississippi with trusted educational programming and resources that inspire learning and spark imagination. From PBS Kids Favorites to digital tools and early learning support, MPB is here for young minds, engaged classrooms, and families who believe in the power of learning at every age.
You're listening to Sit Down right here on MPB Think Radio. I'm your host, Russ Latino. It's good to visit with Commissioner Andrew Gipson. As the fair gets started, a lot of frivolity and fun, and we will switch from frivolity and fun, we'll still have some fun, to talk with State Health Officer Daniel Edney about what's going on in the world of public health in Mississippi, and in a broader way about what's going on in the conversations around public health across the country. I've been wanting to have this conversation for a few weeks now, particularly with last week's announcements from the White House dealing with questions around Tylenol and vaccine safety. And let me just say before we dig in with Dr. Edney that, you know, a lot of what Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has said about public health is correct. We have an obesity epidemic in this country. I am guilty of that. I've said that publicly on the radio. I won't hide from that. And it's significant, and the end result of that is an awful lot of chronic disease. And a lot of that has to do with just really bad behavioral choices, lifestyle choices, and really bad dietary habits. And so it has created a public health emergency that science has had to struggle to keep up with. And in a lot of respects, you can look at the science and go, holy heck, it's actually pretty impressive what has happened in the scientific community to allow us to continue to have really long life expectancies relative to most of human history, even as we suffer with things like obesity, heart disease that results from it, diabetes that results from it, certain cancers that result from it. It really is an impressive feat. I think where things go awry, or at least big questions arise for me, Dr. Edney, is when people then say, well, let's tie the public health emergency that we're identifying to something that it's not causally related to, or at least hasn't been proven to be causally related to, whether you're talking about Tylenol vaccines or any of that. And so I have my perspective based on a whole lot of research I've done. You know more than I do. I want your reaction maybe at the outset of some of the conversation that's happening in the country around the safety and efficacy of vaccines and even simple treatments like Tylenol for inflammation and fevers.
Sure. When it comes to vaccines, Russ, you know, in the legal world, there's the term settled law, which means this is settled, we move forward. In public health science, medical science, you know, vaccine safety and efficacy is settled science. Vaccines are, and the whole issue of immunizations is one of the greatest medical achievements in human history. We have clean water, proper sewage, immunizations are the big three that saved more human lives than anything, far greater than antibiotics, far greater than surgical advancements or chemotherapy. Clean water, sewage, properly done, and vaccinations have saved far more lives than anything else. So to retreat on that really does not make good common sense. I'm old enough, Russ, I remember these diseases. I had mumps when I was 12 and had to sweat it out. Oh my goodness, did it go down on me? And am I going to be able to have children when I get older? Thankfully, I was able to. But, 12 and 13-year-old boys used to always sweat out mumps, what it was going to do. Measles was killing babies and children. Last death was in 1986. And we have eradicated measles. We've eradicated mumps. We've eradicated polio and diphtheria. Pertussis is still hanging around and trying to make a comeback. But we have come so far in the last 40 years that vaccines really have become a victim of their own success, that the younger generation just is not aware of the dangers of vaccine-preventable diseases for infants and children that we know are just right out there waiting to pounce.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because it reminds me a lot of my sort of background and research historically has been around economics, right? And so if you look in economics, there's this concept of the seen and the unseen. And a lot of people who are critical of like free market economics will say, well, you can't really show me that free market economics is the reason that we've got, the type of prosperity that we've got. And I actually think that you can. But part of the reason that people say things like that is because it's very hard to assess the unseen. For a huge percentage of our generation, my generation and younger, we have no idea what measles, mumps, and rubella look like.
Right.
We have no idea, even older than me, no idea what polio looked like or smallpox looked like, and those diseases that ravage populations. So because we've never seen the consequences of those diseases, it's really easy to look at something like a vaccine that effectively eradicated them and say, well, how much good has it actually done? You don't see the collateral damage.
Yeah. So we can look at the public health history of the state, and I can show you we used to have thousands of cases of measles just in Mississippi every year until the MMR vaccine came out in the mid to late 60s, and then you just see it evaporate, going from thousands per year to, by the time we got into the mid-1980s, down to virtually zero, and now we haven't had a case since 1992 of endemic measles. We used to have 300 to 400 deaths every year of infants and young children just from measles. We have zero now. Our last death was in 1986, and we had gone several years without a death before that, and we've had none since then. But you see with declining vaccination rates, what's happening, we've had our worst year thus far in the United States at over 1,500 cases already with 2 deaths in Texas. Still, thankfully, no cases in Mississippi. But, if we don't maintain our vaccination rates above 95% measles, will make a comeback in Mississippi.
Explain that concept, because I think a lot of people struggle with this. I know during COVID, I heard a lot of conversation around herd immunity and what percentage of the population had to be immunized in order for it to be effective. But a lot of people will say things, and I see this on the internet in these conversations. It's like, well, fine, you get your vaccine and you'll be protected. I choose not to get my vaccine. I won't be protected. What you just said, though, is that it takes a certain degree of uptake. And as I understand it, the reason for that is no vaccine is perfectly effective.
That's right. We have some vaccines like the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, that typically provides lifelong immunity or very long-term immunity. Tetanus shot gives you perfect protection, but only for about 10 years, and then it wanes. And then we have things like the flu shot that really help build your immune system up to fight the flu if you get it, and oftentimes will keep you from getting it, but if you do get it, it'll keep you from dying. So we've got different categories of vaccination. All the childhood vaccines are really designed to protect children from dying, and especially to protect our infant population. We had our first death from pertussis in a 2-month-old this week, and that was our first death since 2012, only the third since 2008.
And that's whooping cough.
That's whooping cough. And we're seeing a resurgence of whooping cough. And what's really sad is the baby was too young to be vaccinated. The family had done what they needed to do to protect the baby. The mom had been vaccinated during pregnancy. The grandparents got their grandparents' boosters, but still somebody with pertussis got around the baby who did not have immunity. And they were an adult, probably not very sick, we don't know, but the baby got it and it killed the baby. So in my opinion, that's the community failing. That we protect our babies, we protect our children who are too ill to be vaccinated, our children going through chemotherapy, our children with juvenile diabetes, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, with immunosuppressive disorders. We protect them by all of us around them being vaccinated, and we keep measles and pertussis and polio away from them by us being vaccinated.
So one of the things that I think you'll frequently hear said as these debates are starting to unfold more frequently is, okay, it's a cost-benefit analysis. And the way that I hear people who are skeptical of vaccines' efficacy or safety presented is, okay, maybe in the 60s and 70s, measles, mumps, and rubella would have this negative impact that you, Dr. Edney, just described.
Right.
Hundreds of kids dying.
Right.
But because of modern medicine, the potential consequences of an endemic measles outbreak today is much smaller than what it would have been in the 70s. And at least in the view of the people that believe that vaccines are causing autism, that the consequence of widespread adoption of vaccines is actually a heavier social cost in the proliferation of autism. How do you respond to that sort of cost-benefit analysis?
Well, there is no causation. That is settled science. That this is different from the Tylenol issue. Understanding the difference between association and causation is extremely important. And we have studied for 30 years the issue of, is there a causative link between vaccinations and autism? If there is, we need to know that. And we have looked at millions upon millions of cases, great power in the studies that have been done, and there is no causative link. That is settled science. You ask the autism experts. You don't have to ask me. They will tell you this is not the issue. Autism is a spectrum disorder. It's powerfully driven by genetics, and it's complicated genetics. I was reading this week probably over 1,000 different gene combinations at work, which is why we see that spectrum from mild high-functioning disorder to very low-functioning, profound autism. The vaccines, that no one in competent medical science links vaccinations to autism. The issue with Tylenol is, and when you read the FDA's release, Dr. McCary, the commissioner for the FDA, with the alert to physicians, was simply to be aware that there are studies on both sides showing an association, but very clearly said there's no causation linkage that we see. But to be prudent, which we always want to do in pregnancy, consider minimizing acetaminophen use in pregnancy to just those absolutely necessary opportunities, which is what we do with all medications in pregnancy. We don't use any medicine in pregnancy unless it's absolutely necessary and is for the mother and infant's benefit.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Tylenol thing maybe separately in a second. And just for clarity, I wasn't suggesting that there is a causal link between vaccines and autism. I think what I was trying to lay out is the argument that you often see, which is, if we believe that the impact of endemic measles, mumps, and rubella wouldn't be as bad today as what it used to be because of modern medicine, do we then take what a lot of parents perceive as the risk of vaccines, irrespective of whether or not science has proven the link?
But as a primary care physician for over 32 years, it is much more cost effective to prevent a disease than to treat a disease. When you look at the experience of Texas over the last 12 months, that was an extremely expensive outbreak with disease burden, with hospitalizations. There were 2 deaths, but there were dozens upon dozens of children who had to be hospitalized. And we don't, have great curative medicine for measles once you have measles. I mean, we have, immunoglobulin, but it's not like you take an antibiotic and you get over the measles. We have to support the children so they survive it. Pertussis, we do have an antibiotic there. In fact, if you're exposed, we can give you the antibiotic to protect you, from getting it. But still, the cost-effective analysis is very powerful in favor of prevention, which is what we're trying to do with the chronic diseases with MAHA. It's much more cost-effective to prevent diabetes than to treat diabetes.
Yeah, and I think part of my question, or maybe frustration is the better way to put it, is like, at some level, science throughout history, there are times when it gets proven wrong, right? And it's part of the natural scientific process is to continually question whether or not previously understood facts are true. So I've got no problem with people saying, let's put this under the rigor of scientific questioning and experiment, right?
That's exactly right.
I think the challenge that I've got is it seems to be that we're going from let's question everything, good thought process, to let's assume that our conclusions are true without proving that they are true on some of what is being put out there today around, hey, vaccines cause autism or whatever. And if you look at the history of this, so, you pointed out that in the 60s is when you started to see the vaccines from MMR. They came out individually first, and then they were lumped together. So we've got more than 60 years of data on these vaccines. But it wasn't until the 90s that people started to draw a link or try to draw a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. And it started with a plaintiff's lawyer study that was done by a doctor in England who subsequently got his report yanked from the Lancet for fabricating data, lost his medical license. His co-authors withdrew their names of support. But in the interim time where it took scientists to effectively disprove his conclusions, which were only based on 8 case studies, by the way, that information hung out there in the public sphere and allowed people who genuinely were concerned about what had happened to their kids to latch on to something. And so it created this situation where, because the scientific process is rigorous in trying to disprove something like that, there was a lag in time that allowed for bad information to set in.
No, that's exactly right. But we've not been looking at this for 2 or 3 years, as you point out. We've been looking at this for decades because it is important. If there is causation, we need to know it. We want to know it. But there's a big difference. Association would be, every time I've run fever the last 3 times I had on a blue shirt, there must be a linkage between me wearing a blue shirt and me running fever, where causation is the blue shirt made you have fever.
Sure.
And those are 2 very different things. Associations point us in the right direction. And that's what Commissioner McCary is saying on acetaminophen is perhaps this needs further study. I'm okay with that, although it has been studied fairly extensively. But what I'm even more okay with is, in an abundance of caution, the studies with acetaminophen were with higher dose chronic use during pregnancy, not the mom who's running 102 fever who needs to get her temperature down or it will hurt her baby. We know that's not going to hurt any fetus. So making sure that we have the proper information related to safety and efficacy.
Yeah, and I mean, you saw basically every medical society come out and say, hey, look, caution, acetaminophen can actually be used, if used correctly, during pregnancy.
That's right.
And the concerning thing on my end of looking at that conversation is that you do have studies, the Columbia School of Public Health at Mailman, basically did a study that said during the second trimester, a high fever increases the likelihood of ending up on the autism spectrum disorder spectrum by 40%, and that if you have multiple fevers in the second trimester, that it could go up by as much as 300%. And so the concern on my end is that we would be using associations instead of causation to encourage people not to take a medical treatment that effectively could be used to actually tamp down the instances of autism.
And it's the only medicine we have for fever and analgesia and pregnancy that is overall safe.
So, I mean, at some level, it just strikes me that let's say that you're listening to this conversation and you're like, Dan Edney doesn't know what he's talking about. Russ Latino certainly doesn't know what he's talking about. I've experienced this with my own two eyes. And I think that's part of what RFK Jr. is arguing. Is like, he said, hey, let's not gaslight moms. And I don't think anybody wants to gaslight moms. I mean, they've experienced something. They love their kid probably more than you and I would ever love their kid because it's their kid.
That's right.
And so I get all of that. I think at some level, though, if what you want to do is what is best for those moms and those kids, and you have the full resources of the federal government at your disposal, then by all means, go and prove that Tylenol causes autism. Go and prove that the MMR vaccine causes autism. If there's ever somebody in a position to do that, it would be the guy who has the full power and disposal of the resources of the federal government at his fingertips.
Yeah, and I would agree with half of that. I would prefer not to waste resources and time investigating things that have already been fully investigated. You know, we don't need to keep studying does smoking cause lung cancer. We know that. That's causative. And we know just as powerfully vaccines do not cause autism. I mean, there is no causation. We need to be looking at, are there other factors other than genetics? Are there environmental factors, which I agree with the Secretary. We need to be looking at environmental exposures because they're much more powerful now than when I was a child. If acetaminophen needs further study, all for it. Let's focus on the areas where we don't have enough evidence to declare either way if something's causative related to autism. This is an important topic. I'm not downplaying it at all. Remember, patient number one with the formal diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder was from Forest, Mississippi. Donald Triplett diagnosed at age 10, in 1943. Autism used to be lumped in with schizophrenic diagnoses. The state hospital used to be full of children and teenagers and older adults with what now we know is autistic spectrum disorder, but back then it was thought to be schizophrenia. That we know so much more. We're able to diagnose so much better, and there are a lot more benefits and access to treatment than ever. So this escalating number, a lot of that is artificial prevalence augmentation, that we are able to do better than when I was a kid in the 1970s. But we've had autistic individuals around us. It's all through Southern literature. You can see it.
Yeah, and I think people have got to be careful too when they say things like, "Hey, look at another population like the Amish. They don't have this, or we perceive that they don't have the same problem, so it must be because they also are unvaccinated." There's a whole ton of confounding factors that aren't being considered there.
Too many variables.
So, I think this is an important conversation. It's probably a conversation that could warrant some more time, so we're going to have to get you back in.
Happy to.
When we've got a little bit more time. One of the things that you shared with me that I'll just share really quickly is that in the 1950s, Mississippi infant deaths were 24,167. By the 2020s, it was down to 1,567. That is a phenomenal orders of magnitude difference in public health.
That's right.
And protecting babies. And if you care about your babies, that says something about the path that we've been on and the positive impact it's had on our population.
Right. And we're not where we need to be yet, but we're better than we were.
Thank you so much for coming in, Dr. Edney. We'll have another conversation about this some other time. I imagine it will continue to be a hot-button topic. We've had Andy Gipson on today. We've had Dr. Dan Edney. It's been a good program. I do hope that you'll go out and check out the fair October 2nd through the 16th. The Sit Down is a production of Mississippi Public Broadcasting Think Radio, made possible by generous contributions from supporters like you. If you enjoy the guests and sit-downs we bring each week, please consider making a contribution to help keep shows like this on the air. Visit mpbonline.org or show your support using the MPB Public Media app. Today's show was produced by the ever-wonderful Germaine Flood with live stream production by Abram Nanny. For my guest, Andy Gipson, Daniel Edney, I'm Russ Latino. Stay tuned for Southern Remedy right here at 11 a.m. and join us next week for a new episode of The Sit Down, heard only on MPB Think Radio.